Welcome to Roundabout Oxford, a podcast from the University of Mississippi Libraries.
Hello, I'm Joe Moody, Special Collections Librarian and Assistant Professor here at the University of Mississippi.
And I'm Carmen Sanchez Garcia, Government Documents Cataloger here at the J.D. Williams Library. On the last episode of Roundabout Oxford, we discussed research relating to the native languages within Peru with Dr. Daniel Valle Arevalo.
As this is a two-part series on native language research, this episode is the second part of the series.
Dr. Cheng-Fu Chen is originally from Taiwan and has been teaching with the University of Mississippi for 8 years. His research focuses on the Rukai language of Taiwan and also teaches Chinese and Chinese linguistics.
We started the conversation with Dr. Chen on growing up in a bilingual household in Taiwan.
So Taiwanese, usually I use it with when I talk to my parents. I use Mandarin Chinese when I talk to my siblings, my brothers.
I find this really interesting. I didn't grow up in a bilingual household. Is this common, Carmen? What is your experience with this?
Yeah, actually, I grew up in a bilingual household, and I spoke Spanish with my mom, and I spoke Catalan with my father. And in school, I learned classes in Catalan because in Catalonia is the co-official language. And with my siblings, I spoke only in Spanish, actually. My primary language, I will say it was just Spanish, but I was always very lucky to grow up with two languages. I found it very, very interesting, and I think I'm a very fortunate person.
Well, it sounds like it was a great opportunity to pick up two languages at one time, and also probably helps you in learning foreign languages in your life because you learn two at one time.
Yes, actually, I'm not an expert, but I think my brain is wired in a way that it seems easier or it's much more adaptable to learn a second language. Sometimes languages overlap with each other, and that's what happened with me with Catalan and Spanish. It was a little bit confusing, but at the end, you can switch from one language to the other very easily, and that's the beauty of it.
Thanks so much for sharing that. Okay. Now, in order to understand Chinese and Taiwanese languages, we must understand what makes a language a tonal language.
Tones appear in tonal languages. Tones are pitch patterns. So if you change the pitch pattern of a word, you're using different words. For example, suppose we have a syllable. So syllable is like a combination of a consonant and vowel. So we have ma, spelled as M-A. If you give it different tones, there are different words. So I can say the four words with the four different tones. Ma will be mother. Ma is a type of plant. Ma means horse. Ma means to scold. So there are different words with different tones.
We also asked Dr. Chen about the difficulty of learning tones.
Students might find tones to differentiate them or to produce them might be challenging, but essentially I think eventually students will get used to them, especially when they listen to different tones. But I think speaking or producing the tones usually is like a more challenging one. Even when students get to their intermediate or advanced level, they might still have some issues with producing tones.
We asked Dr. Chen about the complexities of language families within Taiwan.
So the major ones will be like Mandarin Chinese or Taiwanese, which is Taiwanese Hokkien language. That's a different language. And also there's a separate language family which is called Austronesian language they but specifically the Austronesian languages spoken in Taiwan, they are called Formosan languages. So they have their own family group because of their like unique patterns. So there are quite a few different language families in Taiwan.
As we said, Dr. Chen teaches Mandarin Chinese and Chinese linguistics, but he researches a language called Rukai. Rukai is a language in Taiwan from the Austronesian family of languages and is not a tonal language.
Dr. Chen was first exposed to the Rukai language when a professor asked him and another student to research a language that neither of them knew.
So it happens that we just came across a native speaker of the Rukai language in Taipei. So the project was about the sound system of the language. So we talked to him about what we wanted to do. So that is for him to say a few words and some short sentences, and we just record them and do some analysis. So something that is very basic.
One aspect of the Rukai language is that it is alphabetical, which is different from Mandarin Chinese or Taiwanese. We asked Dr. Chen about the written aspects of the languages.
So Taiwanese, or we call them like Chinese dialects or Sinitic languages, they share a very similar writing system. So different, we'll call them Chinese dialects, including the Mandarin, Cantonese, and Chinese. The different dialects, they'll use the same writing system. And many characters you can see them in Japanese kanji system. So Rukai uses a different writing system. Is alphabetical, so Roman and Latin letters. So it's pretty phonetic. That means when you see the letter, you can pronounce them. So it's very similar to Indo-European languages such as Spanish.
I am fascinated with writing systems and how they differ. For example, in Japanese, there are 3 alphabets. Hiragana and katakana are phonetic lettering systems, while kanji resulted from Chinese characters that were adapted to the Japanese writing system.
Yeah, oh wow. Actually, I know a little bit about the Judeo-Spanish, which is actually derives from the Old Spanish, and it's written mainly with a Latin alphabet. But the Hebrew alphabet is still in use.
Wow, that's fascinating. Getting back to Rukai, one thing to note is that it is not a common language.
So usually people say it's about like 10,000 speakers, but Rukai is kind of unique because it has 6 dialects, and the dialects are very, very different. They are so diverse. They are different languages. So if you kind of calculate that or consider that, then each group might fewer than that, much fewer than that number, so a few thousand.
And if you listen to the previous episode, you will remember that we discussed endangered languages. According to Dr. Chen, the term to use for Rukai is that the language is vulnerable.
So based on the classification under United Nations guidelines, so Rukai is vulnerable. The dialect I'm working on fortunately, is one of the major dialects, so it has more speakers. But even though it's just a few thousand speakers, so that's not a lot. If the younger generations, if they are not learning it at home, even from their parents or grandparents, and they are not using it, the language is going to disappear eventually, very quickly. Rukai, and along with other indigenous languages in Taiwan, they also face they have to tackle the pressure or challenge from more dominant languages like Mandarin Chinese.
Yeah, this is very similar to what Dr. Valle was talking about concerning how Harakumbut had to face the more dominant language of Spanish in Peru. Dr. Chen was able to design teaching materials with many native speakers who are teachers of Rukai. Much of this was due to governmental support.
About 20 years ago, so the government started to feel the need to continue with cultural preservation for these peoples, because without governmental support, it's very difficult to hire teachers or to train new teachers.
We asked Dr. Chen how he's using his research.
We're working on a textbook. So we talk about so Rukai is an under-resources language, so it doesn't really have a good textbook. So that's we feel the need to have one. So I'm working with the committee about a textbook and then maybe a teaching grammar as well. So I also teach Chinese linguistics here. So sometimes when I feel the need to kind of introduce like linguistic diversity to students, I'll use data from different languages. So sometimes we'll talk about Japanese just a little bit, Japanese data or German, and sometimes I'll draw data from Rukai.
Dr. Chen mentioned an interest not just in native languages in Taiwan, but also in Mississippi.
I usually work on cross-linguistic analysis, so I'll think about indigenous languages in America. So in Mississippi, there are Native American languages like Choctaw and Chickasaw, and I'm not sure about the landscape now, but I know Choctaw and Chickasaw, they're still used in some parts of Mississippi. So I think sometimes I'll kind of relate this situation of Rukai to the landscape here. So and you feel the sense that these are all underrepresented languages or groups, and I think it would be nice to have more people working on these native languages. So that's something I keep thinking about. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
I love that he mentioned native languages here in our region. I want to learn a lot more about that. You know, after these last two episodes, I feel like I want to learn a lot more about language in general. It's been a great two-part series. And Carmen, it's been a pleasure working with you on this.
Same here, Joe. It's been a fascinating journey among all these different languages and native languages, and thank you for listening.
Roundabout Oxford is created by Brian Corrigan, Carmen Sanchez Garcia, Joe Moody, Lauren Rogers, and Alex Watson, with musical contributions from Brian Corrigan and Gail Herrera.